And we are live. It's the spoiler room. Hello, everyone. And we're starting a new month, so it's a new theme, and it's dry month. So, thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and having a sarsaparilla with us.
I'm having double espresso.
Oh, you got double espresso. I just got water here. I had my apple crisp shaken espresso beverage earlier, so
Yeah, I tried a little bit of Shanta's the other day. She had that, and I had my usual double espresso, the handshaken espresso, which has like I think 3 or 4 shots of espresso in it. She let me taste some of her apple crisp. I was like, okay, I actually like this.
Yeah, the apple crisp oat milk shaken espresso is not actually that bad. I also got my white girl on, and if I had my pumpkin spice latte a couple of times already. So yay! So
I found pumpkin spice body wash when I was at Dollar Tree. I was like, oh, let me get this. I could use it to pick up goth girls this season.
But yes, folks, it is getting back to our theme. It is dry month, which means we're looking this month at films involving prohibition in some way, shape, or form. So very excited to bring you a very varied types of films this month, and I've got a great crew with me tonight to talk about a first one, which is a film I have adored and watched many times, and it is Robin and the Seven Hoods, and from 1964. And with me tonight, first off, he is back with us after being covered in blood and clay and living a debauchery life for the past week. It's Mr. Joe Randazzo. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. And yeah, we were on the Power of Positive Murder. We were Shanta / Celeste from Hex and Arcane. We flew out. We were part of the film, and we both got very, very bloody. With me, they gave me a shirt to wear. With her, she's a little not safe for work, but you'll see that when the movie comes out. And she got so soaked in blood that and we were going to go to Planet Fitness. We used her Planet Fitness membership to run in there. She would run into the women's, I'd run into the men's. We'd take showers and meet outside. But she got so bloody and so sticky that we had to that we couldn't actually put any clothes on for the drive to Planet Fitness. So we got it was cold in upstate New York, so we bought these extra blankets at Dollar Tree. So we used that to cover her up and run her into Planet Fitness. And luckily, it was after midnight, so there weren't many people out there. But there was one car out there that had those LED lights that like give messages, and it just spelled out "titties, please."
Because of course it would.
She actually went and took a video of the car, not to get the guy in trouble or anything. We don't even have his license plate. She just
thought it funny.
Yeah, she just thought it was funny that okay, you clearly noticed what we were doing. Yeah, we ran inside. We're like, we swear this is not real blood. The guy's like, I'm not gonna ask any questions. We just went and took our showers.
It's New York, so they don't ask any questions. Like, okay, whatever. Yeah, you can use our showers. You're a member. Go. I don't ask questions.
We don't care if it's real blood you're watching.
I don't care if it's real blood. Just the security cameras are there and there. So there you go.
Yeah, it took a while, and actually my hair, because they made a plaster mold of my head to pop out a character's eyes. Mm-hmm. My hair was so full of fake blood and plaster that when I went to my brother's that weekend, he was like, "Bro, your hair's disgusting." He's like, "I got my buzzer. We could just buzz it off." But I decided what I needed to do, because my nephew wanted to play basketball. I was like, I'm going to play him one-on-one until the loser gets his head shaved. And I just threw the game. There you go. And I got video of my nephew shaving my head. I was like, perfect. It works out. And I'm the most fun uncle in history because of this now. He loves it. He's like, I got to shave your head. I had a blast.
Oh, it sounds fun. Can't wait to see that film for sure. And glad that you could make it. Kind of why we're having a Tuesday night showing, because
Thank
I
you guys
wanted,
for waiting for me because I wanted to talk about this movie. I love
I,
this movie.
I knew you wanted to talk about it, so that's why we were able to move a little things. And who was also accommodating, and we're here with us, the man who keeps coming back for more, my right hand man himself, Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm extremely tired.
Oh,
But
I'm sorry.
no, it's one of those days that started at 2 o'clock in the morning and just kept going.
Oof.
Fortunately, I had Robin and the Seven Hoods to perk me up. That's the first thing I did this morning after putting on coffee was start watching this movie, and instantly I was like,
yeah. Same here because I've been telling Sean about it for years. And I'm like, I got to watch it for the podcast. And he's like, you know what? I got to leave for work in like 2.5 hours. Like, well, we got 2 hours. It's 2 hours and 3 minutes. Let's get it in.
Nice.
And I, I'm jumping the gun here, Mark, but I messaged, the both of you that, your show is really making me wonder, like, why I even bother watching. We talk about these things because we're the old men who talk about movies and how the younger generation can't appreciate movies, that they don't even acknowledge anything that came before the year 2000. I'm going to turn that back and just say I'm beginning to think I shouldn't acknowledge any movie that came after the year 2000 because man, there is nothing like last night I watched a movie called The Stone Tape. It's like from early 1960s. It's a horror, kind of a British, like a Hammer thing.
And same director as The Lonely Lady, Peter Sasty.
Really? I didn't pick up on that. Well, but
I would love to hear your take on it.
I thought it was amazing. And I watched that and then I watched this movie back to back. I'm like, what am I doing watching, no offense, Mark, fucking Beetlejuice when I can be watching stuff that actually, cares enough to be smart and entertaining and not like rely on crutches. But that's just been my experience with going to the movies for the last, couple of months. I mean, I pay to see these things. I'm a certified film critic and all that stuff. But I don't really go to those screenings. I plop down my God, like $13 to go see a damn movie. And I always walk out thinking that wasn't worth it. But then I rent this movie, Robin and the Seven Hoods, for like $3 on Amazon. I'm like, I want to buy this thing and own it.
Yeah, I don't have it. I didn't buy it either, but I need to because watching it again. Joe's got it. I watching it again. It's been a while, but I watched it and I remembered all the scenes in that. I'm like, yeah, I've watched this quite a bit more than I realize. And tonight, if you're wondering what Robin and the Seven Hoods is about from 1964, Mr. Joe Randazzo, he's got a disc there. Let's see if they got a synopsis in the back. But if not, Joe, could you give us the synopsis of this film?
Unfortunately, it's black on gold. So, and Robin and the Seven Hoods, director Gordon Douglas and writer David Schwartz mirthfully give the Robin Hood legend a Depression-era mob town Chicago setting. There, Northside boss Robbo, Frank Sinatra, hopes to get a leg up in his power struggle with. Sorry, it's hard to see this. With rival racketeer Guy Gisborne, Peter Falk. Robbo sets himself up as a latter-day Robin Hood with the philanthropic roots. No, wait, philanthropic fronts, enabling him to scam the rich. Not really. Take his cut and give to the poor. Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Bing Crosby, and Barbara Rush join in on the giddy, gangsterish fun. The jazzy Sammy Kahn, Jim Van Housen songs, including My Kind of Town, are the perfect match for this all-star cast. If that had been a white cover, I'd have been able to read that so much easier.
No, but we've got it. Basically, an all-star cast, a who's who, including the Rat Pack, in a gangster Prohibition version of Robin Hood of sorts. Ian, you could go first. You said you enjoyed this film. What did you think? Because this was the first viewing for you. That's why I wanted to get your reaction first. So, what'd you think?
I loved it, but I'm conflicted on whether or not I love the fact that it was a musical. because as much as I liked the songs, I very much was so caught up in the dialogue and the performances and these great characters that I really did feel that the songs were kind of like they screeched the movie to a halt because they don't necessarily advance the story. They're almost commenting on kind of what's going on. And they're enjoyable. I think as a first watch, it kind of bothered me, but I will watch this movie again. I think I'll appreciate it a lot more. But yeah, it's no one's ever been cooler than the Rat Pack. I finally get it watching this movie, like what they were all about. And I just love the inventiveness of this. As you mentioned, it's a Robin Hood. It's a take on Robin Hood. The details that are both obvious, like, okay, I hate Sinatra's character's name, Robbo. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a terrible nickname for your friend Rob, like, hey, Robbo, but no, it's supposed to be, I guess, his last name. But then you get other details like Sammy Davis Jr.'s character is Will, and he's often attired in, or he's got like these little red streaks of hair. Will Scarlet from the Robin Hood legend. Those kinds of details. The Nottingham Hotel and Maid Marian is a completely different type of character. This movie is wild, and there's surprises around every corner. And I couldn't get enough of it. And again, it made me so happy and also so angry because I'm like, where is this spirit today in modern movies? It's just gone.
The vibe of this film is amazing, and watching it again, you're just like, man, how does a dark film like this, because it gets dark in spots, folks, be so upbeat and energetic? Like you're just like, yeah, man. Yeah, they put that guy in concrete. Yeah, we literally have Sammy Davis Jr. talking about enjoying shooting guns.
Yes, and that's probably my favorite song and dance number in this movie.
Oh yeah.
I just watching that today, when that one wound down, I just turned to Sean and went, Jesus, he was so fucking talented. Sammy Davis Jr. was so talented. It's amazing. The choreography of that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I think the front half of this movie is definitely stronger than the latter half, I think, because once we get into the trial and then the gimmick of Marion trying to, once again, like the theme we talked about last month, kind of like sleep her way up through the ranks of the underworld. It's cute, but like after the third one, you're like, oh, we're doing this setup again.
But she's not going to sleep with Victor Buono if they hand him throw him the door.
I think she say ta-ta. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun, but I think this might be my second, maybe I want to say, movie that I've seen Dean Martin in. And the first one was Rio Bravo, which we talked about, last year on my show, which was another revelation. I mostly know about the Rat Pack from pop culture and not from actually having experienced any of the stuff that they did together. And now that I'm discovering, I'm like, this, I finally understand it. And there is no equivalent today. I know they remade Ocean's 11. They tried to turn like Clooney and Pitt and all those guys into like a new thing, but they just didn't. They were trying to do something, whereas with the Rat Pack, it was effortless, and it's so fun to watch. When Frank Sinatra goes and pounds on the door of what ends up being the counterfeit soup and money operation, like he's pounding on the door and saying, "Open up." I believed. Now there's all these stories about Sinatra and how he got his start in Hollywood. I'm like, I don't know if that was in the script. I think a little too natural there, but yeah, great stuff.
There were a few times that I felt like they were ad-libbing, like Sammy Davis Jr. Looking for the phone when it's ringing after after the place got busted up. I got a feeling they just told Sammy, just go for it. Just do whatever you want. Just do your funny bits. And I think what the difference is when you try to recreate this kind of thing, and the reason it's so effortless in this movie is these guys were these characters and just kind of were best friends as like these. They just felt like a bunch of friends getting together making a movie.
Right.
It felt like Dean, do that shtick that you do that we all laughed at that one time, and it's actually funny. And it just felt like it just kind of went like that. I mean, and you know that these guys all do have a history with each other.
Mhm.
You know, even Bing Crosby, even though, you know, when you think of the Rat Pack, you think of, you know, Sinatra, Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and then you think of like Peter Lawford and people like that. But Bing Crosby kind of had that little bit of, you know, he was kind of with them, but he's kind of on the outside of them. But you got that feeling with these guys that this was, I mean, it also helps that Sinatra produced it. So
Mhm.
I think that's the reason why it has this energy that we don't see now, because I feel like most of the movies, when we see them now, are kind of cynical, where I got the feeling watching this, no, Sinatra, Martin, Sammy Davis, Bing Crosby, they all wanted to make this movie. That's the feeling that I got from this. It wasn't just some cynical executive coming to them going, "Hey, we need a movie from you guys. It's got to be this, this, and this." And Sinatra, you know, supposedly was always into this organized crime stuff, so it works out for what he wanted to do.
Well,
So,
but you mentioned something that I think is important, and there's a distinction. I hear all the time, you know, oh, it looked like they had such fun making the movie. And whenever I hear that describing a movie, I know that I'm going to hate the movie because I don't give a
Yeah.
shit if the people who made it had fun making it. I care about them caring about me having to watch them have a good time making a movie.
Right.
And it's often like, you know, oh, we're ad-libbing, we're goofing around, we don't care. Yeah, watching this movie, I believed that they had a great time making it, but I also believed that they had assembled a really talented and insanely talented team of writers to put this together, along with the sets. The scene where they transform the casino into the makeshift
Yeah.
the revival meeting.
ministry. Oh my God.
I love that scene. That's my favorite scene. What's also great about the scene, because yeah, we've got Guy Gisborne in here, played beautifully by Peter Falk.
I think he steals the show.
Peter Falk is on another level in this film.
Yeah.
Like, I forgot how good he was in this, because everybody remembers, you know, the Rat Pack, Bing Crosby, all that. I forgot how good Peter Falk was as the heavy in this, as Guy Gisborne. And you know, yeah, you get the revival thing, and what's really great is Guy Gisborne, he's in league with the now deputy sheriff, because they offed the sheriff. They're going to take out Robin Hood because he's become this celebrity, because Bing Crosby's you know, orphanage worker took this money that Robbo gave him and put it in the orphanage, and he became a celebrity. And so anyway, they want to bust him. They want to, you know, basically show the world that he's actually still a hood. So they convert this casino into a revival. And where I'm going with this is, it is surreal to see Dean Martin sing about the evil of booze.
And I love that the joke was that they couldn't even keep a straight face doing it. Like they had to keep telling, yeah, get off the stage. When Dean Martin wants to go up there and sing, Bing Crosby's like, you really don't need to.
Yeah, you just need to confess. You don't need to confess.
Oh, yeah, and there's that whole thing, because, you know, the crooked cop or the crooked deputy sheriff had enlisted like 20 Chicago cops to go and help break it up, and they end up like dancing and clapping along with their axes they've got slung over their shoulders. I mean, it's a rare movie that can be this much fun, and as you mentioned, this dark, because there's a running joke about having rivals poured into the concrete cornerstones of buildings. And you just imagine, like, because I kind of describe, like, oh yeah, we had to fold the bodies in half to get them. Like this is one step removed from Scorsese, but it's also riotously funny and surprising, because at the end, when Guy Gisborne hatches a plan with you know, Marion to dispose of you know, Robbo and Will, not Will, John.
And yeah. John, yeah.
Right. They cut to, because they said, well, we're just going to pour them into this new cornerstone. They're dedicating a pretzel factory or something like that. Yeah. You cut to, oh, yep, there's the cornerstone. And this movie has earned it, because I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, they might have killed the heroes of this film. I wouldn't put it past them, because this is all leading to, no matter what you do to Marion, no matter how many times you foil her plans, she's going to rise to the top. but then it turns out no, it was Guy Gisborne that got poured into there. And I'm just thinking I don't mind that the scummy, smug mobster villain that we've been following and hating this entire film, he doesn't get a proper like shootout or final speech or a death. No, you just see him in a concrete slab. Well, you don't see him.
You don't see him, but he's in there.
Right. And then you just have Sinatra and Dean like kind of leaning into the frame saying like, hey, what's going on, Mary? And she's like, what? But no.
Yeah, and then she drops that line. Oh, I guess you really can shoot from the belly button then, huh?
Oh my God.
It's dialogue.
This thing is
and the running
is crazy
gags
funny.
Dialogue. There's a lot of great running gags in the dialogue. You got Alan Jenkins with his I make a motion, somebody open a window.
Yeah.
every single time he raises his head.
Or even because these side characters got their own gimmicks. You got the open the window one, or on Robbo's crew, there's the guy with his knitting.
Yeah,
you've got a gangster who does knitting. Like, and he's
at one point he's describing how to knit to another gangster.
Or you get Bing Crosby's Alan Adale, who comes in and he talks in really big words, and everybody just keeps going, something with his throat.
Something wrong with his throat. even the kids in the orphanage, like, I think it's something wrong with his throat. Great running gags. I absolutely love them. And we get a great uncredited performance, because who are you going to get as the old gangster that's going to get knocked off at the beginning? Edward G. Robinson.
Yes.
Who we're going to see next week, too.
Yeah.
I don't, there's a movie that came out like 20 years after this, Johnny Dangerously.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton, right? There was a scene, I haven't watched that movie in probably 40 years, but I do remember there was a scene where they had a lifelike version of the bad boss kind of like brought in a crate, and he actually has a working machine gun and he surprised everybody. I thought about that scene in the opening where the entire crowd turns their guns on Edward G. Robinson. I wondered if the Johnny Dangerously folks were inspired by that scene, because it's a great moment. I don't know how they avoided shooting each other, because they're wow. But it's a wonderful open. It's a hell of a way to open a movie, and you keep seeing that gangster's portrait, Big Jim, all over the movie, like in the backgrounds of everything. It's weird.
Well, Robbo is, Robbo loved him, and all that. But there were a few times that Sean caught a couple and I caught a couple where I was like, I wonder, like the big boardroom scene where Peter Falk, as Guy Gisborne, is taking over. It's a lot like this, like a similar scene in Dick Tracy, where Al Pacino is holding court as big boy over everybody, going, okay, yeah, you guys are all going to be paying a tribute to me. And
or Batman 89 with the Joker at the head of the table. It's shot just like that scene.
Sean brought that one up. He was like, Batman 89. It's a similar thing. So yeah, it's and also, speaking of Batman, the composer of the score for this is Nelson Riddle, who you might think you're watching the Batman episode, because there were a lot of the Batman 66 stings throughout this.
Yeah, there were.
And it sounded a lot like
Riddle's work, like 66 Batman. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that that the composer was actually Frank Gorshin using an alias.
No,
but no, went a different direction.
Well, we have a different Batman villain in this, because Victor Buono was also King Tut.
Yeah, he was.
That's where I recognized him.
That's where you recognize him from.
The entire time I'm watching him, like, I know that face.
And also, not Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Was he in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? He was in one of them. He's in either that one or Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte. And right now it's escaping me, but he's in one of those.
Well, you look at the director's work who did this. This guy, first off, his pedigree is pretty dang impressive. The director, Gordon Douglas, because he did after this, he did Stagecoach. He also did where is it? He did actually a Robin Hood film back at the Rogues of Sherwood Forest way back in the day. But what else? What else did I run across? Them. We reviewed them a year or two ago here on the Spoiler Room, and he directed them. That was the other one. I mean, this, and In Like Flint, he directed In Like Flint as well, which explains the humor. And if you look at this, getting Edward G. Robinson to open this film, you look at what they've mashed together, Robin Hood and Prohibition gangsters. This is a comedic love letter to your gangster films, is what this is.
Oh yeah, and Sammy Davis Jr. even does James Cagney impression at one point, and Sinatra's like, "What is that?" "Oh, I saw it in a movie."
Yeah. But similar to like what In Like Flint was, which was, the tongue in cheek, but having fun with the spy and the Bond genre, you've got here them having fun with the gangster genre, because your gangsters are bad guys, but they're still fun bad guys, even though they're bad, they're dark. You're like, I shouldn't be laughing at Peter Falk, but he gets this wonderful dialogue. It's always great when he was with Sinatra. Those two played off each other so well.
They really did. And the phone call after both places get hit, where they're both like, "Oh, hey, buddy, how you doing, pal? How's your day going?" A lot of cleaning up on my end.
Yeah, sorry I missed you when I dropped by. Yeah, it's so good. And yet there was
Don't use so many nails next time. It's a lot harder to pull it apart. And there's that great scene where the two cars are crossing each other. They're both on a red light, and
they're both going to trash each other's place.
Dialogue.
Oh,
that's the thing. There's a lot of cheap gags in this movie, but they work.
I don't know. I don't even know if they're cheap. They're it's hard to describe.
Well, maybe maybe it's because there's been 60 years of movies after that, so we might have seen this stuff 100 times by then.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how inventive it was at the time. Maybe it was.
I mean, this almost feels like something the Zucker brothers would have been really big fans of, because it's not quite Airplane or Naked Gun or anything, but it goes a little bit further than just being a comedy. Maybe it's because they're tying the whole like Robin Hood aspect into the Chicago gangster. They're kind of digging into satirical ideas and making different connections, but it's so damn smart. Like, I love when again I mentioned the minestrone counterfeit money operation that Marion's running. She's on the phone at one point trying to open up a connection in like out back east, and she says, "So what if they don't drink minestrone in Boston? Just throw a couple of clams in it and call it chowder." Oh, and she's scary. I mean, that's like when we first meet her, we think, oh, well, she's just going to be the arm candy or something like that. But no, she ends up becoming I was going to say the third villain, but Sinatra's not really the villain; he's the anti-hero. But she's like the second heavy after Peter Falk, because the heavies kind of change position throughout this movie. It's like like a deft game of weird Chicago mob chess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just amazing how this story shifts, but it feels natural. And she was in a Batman 62 episodes as Nora Clavicle. The actress was Barbara Rush. Yeah, who just passed away this year. Actually.
Oh, did she just pass away?
She passed away this year. Yeah.
It's funny because I was like, she's probably the only person in this movie still alive, and
she just
probably was until this year.
Till this year. But I mean, she's got a huge amount of movies. But her character, and you don't see her for a while, so you're like, think she's just kind of a one-off type of. Oh, okay, they brought her in, called her Marion. She wanted revenge for her dad. So she's trying to hire Robbo to off the sheriff because they blamed the sheriff for the death of her dad. And then she disappears for like an hour.
Yeah. And she shows up asking for a hit. But the thing that strikes me is how they kind of played with the characters in the Robin Hood story. Because you don't get King John coming back at the end because he's clearly dead. Edward G. Robinson is your King John. The Sheriff of Nottingham ends up, well, both of them, both sheriffs, end up in the cornerstone of a building.
Yeah.
Um,
And what I loved too was with the story, Marion going through basically all the characters, trying to find someone that will bend to her will, and of course, Robbo just tells her to pound sand right away, and then while Robbo is on trial for being set up for the sheriff's murder by Guy Ginsburg. She woos John, which was a lot easier. Go figure.
Oh, yeah.
Little John. She woos him, and she's the one that turns all these actual charitable places as fronts for the various businesses, including counterfeiting. And John. But what I loved is at the end, John is still with Robbo.
Yeah.
Well, because he's
yeah. Go ahead.
Well, no, you're right. He's a horn dog, but he's still loyal, and he also, I mean, you get the feeling that he kind of hooked up with Marion while Robbo was on trial. He's just kind of like laying back, letting her do her thing. But then Robbo comes back, and he's understandably mad, and she tells him off, and he's like, you don't do that to a guy like that. And then he makes this great comment about never work for someone who's got
great legs.
Great legs. And he's like, because if Robbo ever uncross his legs, it'd be like, forget about it.
Yeah.
But he goes back with his friend, and it's just like that's the great thing about, and I haven't seen a lot of Rat Pack movies. In fact, I don't think I've seen any of them, except this is my first one. But I just get this feeling, this solid bond between these three main guys. They never have to say what it is. It's a vibe, as the kids say. You just watch them and you get like, I get it. They're going to take a bullet for each other, but they're also smart enough they would never have to take a bullet for anybody in the gang.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, I love the idea that Robbo, being a gangster that he was a numbers guy mostly. He was in New Orleans. He's a numbers guy. He's not a guy who technically, really goes to war or whatnot, but is not afraid to fight if he needs to. But he was kind of digging being the celebrity and the charitable guy. He actually leans into it. And I like that angle. I like he didn't turn it. It ends up being Marion, the one who you didn't expect, who in most of the Robin Hood movies is the pure one, Marion. No, in this one, she's pure evil in this one. She is the scheming one.
Was it ever established, because there was some question early on, and I've only seen the movie once, because Robbo, since he had such a close connection with Big Jim, he's like, he never mentioned anything about a daughter. What did we ever figure out? Was she actually his daughter, or was she just claiming to be?
I think we just took their word for it, because I don't know if there was any evidence given to us. I mean, they never came out and said she wasn't at any point in the movie. So I guess we just kind of roll with it.
There was no claim, but she could easily, it could have been a con.
It could have been.
That's the other thing that is fascinating about her character. And, again, talking about the movies we watched with women kind of climbing up those ladders of power in the underworld, just the guts, dare I say, the balls to just say, I'm going to claim to be the heir to this gangster's empire. And he's probably such a philanderer that it might as well be true. Who's gonna double check?
Probably was.
Well, yeah, especially back then, you didn't really have that, and she put up a convincing enough argument, and they're just like, well, okay, maybe he did, because that's the guy Jim was. They're like, sure, okay. She puts a convincing argument. She knows names of people, but
she carries herself well. She looks very, wealthy, and she comes off as being very powerful. It's great. And I do love the fact that I know I complained that towards the end of the movie, it gets a little repetitive with her, ending up at the same Citizen Kane style long dinner table with the different gangster. But I do love the fact that she's introduced. We think, oh, she's going away. And then she just shows up again later in the film. And then she's gone for a little while. And then she shows up a little bit later. And there's like, oh, wait, she's the level boss.
Well, what's also great about Marion in this is, like I said, how intricate she becomes at the end. And, the way she's portrayed too, she's a street smart, person as well. She's like, she has no question that Robbo, when he says you got 48 hours to get out of town, she makes that comment. She's like, he's not going to give us 49.
Yeah.
She knows how criminals work. Okay. She really knows how, regardless of what supposed school she went to, it makes you wonder even further, did she actually go to these Ivy League type private schools, or, has she been working working the organized crime angle forever? And so she puts in her plan into action to defraud, basically Robbo, knock him back down. And, we get him at the end, we get our three guys, they're running a game where they're running charity, playing Santas because they're on the lam, and they run across her, but she's not with the deputy sheriff.
Nope, they realize that he is in that new cornerstone.
But who's she with?
She's with Bing Crosby now. What an arc he has.
For real. I mean, man. The other thing I liked about this movie that I haven't noticed in a lot of crime pictures, a lot of the mob movies you watch, it is all about like the family and the business, and it's very kind of tight knit. What I loved about this movie is the public. They're constantly engaging with the public and showing the public, because they are pawns in whatever scheme the rival gangs are cooking up, whether it's rival casinos or a packed courthouse and the jury, or the women's league against immorality that Marion starts as a front to draw attention, basically build up her public profile so that no one can come after her in that 48-hour window. It's great because it's Chicago, it's politics, it's the machine, but you're really seeing how that affects not just the people in the cigar smoky boardrooms and everything, but the every day-to-day people. It's just something I don't really see often, and it was cool to see here, presented both comedically and with some plenty of social commentary layered on top.
Dean Martin out of the Rat Pack, of course, he's the ladies' man. His interactions with the cigarette girls that come about, and how 90% of them, 10% of them, are enamored with him, but like 90% of them are just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Just like, they know what type of dog he is, and they're just like, yeah, okay,
Talk about.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, talking about improv, I want to get your guys' read on this. At one point, Dean and Bing are sitting at a table. The cigarette girls are bringing these giant kind of like bronze casks over to them, filled with money, and they're pouring it out and counting it. And the one girl comes over and she leaves without taking the lid back with her.
Yes.
And he's just kind of like, oh, whatever. Was that an ad lib? Because it felt like it could go either way. I totally bought it. Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of business during that whole thing, Rob. Just like, it just seems like this is them just riffing, because it's so inconsequential, but fun.
And it's just one long take too, so they didn't want to. It's a long take of just Dean and Dean and Bing counting money from the charity. It's a long take. There's no cut in there. They just have the three different, the two different cigarette girls come up. So I think that's why they may have did it too. It's just like, okay, you know what, we'll roll with it. Dean's like, oh, hey, you forgot the lid. Okay, whatever.
You got the most active can in this place.
Yeah.
Or something like that. As she's walking away and he's watching her hips sway.
You've got the most Yeah.
He's doing the thing that also, I mean, I don't know that they stole this or influenced by it. Be cool if they were, but super bad. When we first see McLovin, he's watching a girl walk down the hallway in like a short skirt or something. And he's kind of bouncing his head back and forth with the swaying of her like butt cheeks. Dean Martin does that same thing a little bit here with one of the cigarette girls as he's watching her walk away.
I love that. Yeah, maybe. Like that one line, because they're Robbo's reopening his club, and John goes, man, I'm exhausted. I've been interviewing cigarette girls all day.
And he's like, we
Good thing
only need two.
And he's like, good thing we only need two. But that banter, I mean, it is why I think the Rat Pack are such a big deal and endearers, because there's just natural chemistry between them. And Bing fits in well with this group. You know, you might think, oh, you know, you got these three, but when Bing gets in there, you know, and that's the thing is, with as big of stars you have in here, even in the side characters, everybody gets a little bit of their moment. Everybody gets some moments in here. You know, you would think with Frank, Sammy, and Dean, Bing, there wouldn't be room for Bing, but they manage, everybody gets their own number or own scene. They get their own little arc for the most part. You know, it's like, it's really well balanced for being such a star heavy picture.
I don't want to do this, Mark, but I'm going to bring it up again. We have another contemporary example of Beetlejuice, a movie that had probably about the same amount of plots and subplots going on, and it was a complete mess. This movie is 23 minutes longer than that movie, has just as many plot points, but at the end, every single character and event and, you know, subplot has a resolution. They're like, this is perfect. They left no cornerstone, I should say, unturned, and you don't feel exhausted going like, you know what, I feel like half of these plot points they just threw in to pad it out, you know, just to have a bit of business. It all works.
Yeah, I never got that feeling with this at all. Yeah, none of it felt like
the film moves too. I mean, I know you mentioned, the the musical numbers do seem a bit out of place, but I don't mind. And when you have this group of individuals, you know, a director would be dumb not to work in some kind of musical acts with your four folks you have here. I mean, even Peter Falk gets a
Peter
musical
Falk's bit
number.
is great too.
He gets a wonderful musical number with all the gangs, which is really funny because you watch this and it's a table just filled with all of these older male actors, and you can tell not all of them, you know, for a musical, they're not all musically inclined, yet they're all singing, and it's wonderful. It just adds charm to that number, you know. And Fox singing in character, I mean, he's 10 times better in this than he was in Murder by Death. Though he was enjoyable in that too, but still here, I just love his Guy Gisborne so much. It's like you watch him, it's like
I said, I feel like he steals the show in this one. I really feel like this is like it's Sinatra's movie, but it becomes Peter Falk's movie because of just how fantastic he is here. He steals every scene he's in.
He does, and even, you know, the movie I think is very balanced because it does kind of flop between, because it's about these two, you know, rivals, but it's like you've got Guy Gisborne, Peter Falk as, you know, this kind of standalone guy, and then on the other side of that you've got the Rat Pack as sort of a collective, because it's sort of Robbo's story, but he's mostly with his other, you know, people because he's a man of the people. But again, this duality is perfectly balanced throughout the entire film. You never feel like, oh, one guy's stealing the show and we got to go back and settle for this other group of people and just waiting to get back to the cool guy. They're all cool people. They're all funny and they're all doing really interesting things. There's not, you know, I made that comment about the musical numbers in the beginning. Yeah. You know, it's one of those things where I think I got frustrated because I felt like, okay, now we're pulling over for a musical number. It does stop the action, but the songs were all great. So it took about a half a minute for me to be like, oh, God, hey, okay, yeah.
And that's the thing. Every one of these songs is fun.
Yeah.
There isn't one that I'd be like, oh, you know, we could we should shave that one off, and never thought about that for any of them.
Well, you get that wonderful, they don't get many scenes where all three of them are together exchanging dialogue, but just before you've got to have style musical number, you have Bing, Dean, and Frank. And if you want a clinic on banter, back and forth. It's that scene because they go back and forth talking about how Alan Adale really needs to change his style, and they bring up the throat gimmick, but it's so natural the way they bounce it between each other. And then they're doing this musical number, and they close the doors, and when they open it, Bing's in some weird outfit every time until they finally get to the final scene where they're looking very stylish. And this is Bing in his later years. So the fact that they have him in here and he's still holding up really well in here, he holds his own. It's like, it's so fun to watch so much talent. This is where one of those ensemble films that works well. And when you get an ensemble film of talent that works well, it's so much fun to watch because every one of these folks is a headliner in their own right.
Yeah.
Which I was wondering this the entire time I watched this movie. And maybe it's just because I'm only within the last, decade plus kind of getting into musicals, so I don't know the full history of them. I haven't seen like all of them, certainly. But why isn't this movie more talked about?
I don't know.
It's 40% on Rotten Tomatoes if you want to go by that.
40%?
40% on Rotten Tomatoes. I have no idea why.
I might quit Rotten Tomatoes over that. that is a crime.
Well, you mentioned the Zucker brothers before. The dialogue in this film is got the pace of a Zucker brothers film.
It's very quick.
Like Top Secret type of boom, boom, the lines and the puns. When they're watching the first first stone being put down, Robbo, I love that. Robbo isn't really phased that Ginsburg off the sheriff. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. He actually shows up as well to the event because Ginsburg invited him, and you get them just bantering puns so naturally. And then the one guy's making the one line of, "It is sad that the sheriff disappeared, and we hope he hasn't run afoul." And the one guy goes, "Foul? I thought I was a pretty solid hit." But it's
someone else made it. I don't know if it was by the sheriff or one of the other half dozen people that's got concretized in this movie, but they said he was a very solid citizen.
Yeah.
And I think the sheriff someone described the sheriff as being the cornerstone of the police department.
My favorite one was the sheriff is a man who would not bend. And the guys goes, "Oh, we didn't have any trouble with that." or something about folding them.
Yeah. We had no problems folding them. But what's great about that is, and again, these are side characters. These aren't even your main characters throwing these quips. It's so conversational. It feels natural for this group. It doesn't feel like, oh, look we've got this joke line. It feels like you're looking in on this group of gangsters, and this is the banter they would have during this.
And everybody gets their little moment even the minor characters, they all get their little moment to shine. And you know each one. When you hear a voice, if it's somebody off screen, by the middle of the movie, you know which character's saying it because you recognize immediately who it was. You got that one, the one older guy in Robbo's crew that just rambles all the time. The guy with the big lips. And
you get the guy named Twitch. He's got a twitch. He's Guy Ginsburg's guy, but he's got a twitch. I loved the old guy. I forgot which one he is. I think that might be Vermin, or
Vermin is on
Ginsburg. Blue Jaw. I think it might have been Blue Jaw, but it was the older gentleman. Like you said, he's like the oldest guy of the crew. So like when they're smashing things, they go up to him and he's like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna go take a rest." And they're like, "Yeah, why don't you go take a rest?" Or when they handed him the chips for
it's after Will shoots something right next to him. He's like, "Will, I thought we was pals."
Yeah.
And as he's walking away, he's rambling, and you can see Sammy Davis Jr. kind of break and kind of laugh a little bit. And I'm wondering if that's in character as Will Scarlet, or if that's just Sammy Davis Jr. just going, fuck, you just made me laugh on camera.
Well, if you look at during the revival scene too, you see Sinatra and Dean off to the side because it's Bing's moment singing about Mr. Booze. You can see Dean and Frank both hold back a couple of times when when Bing's delivering, the story about these people in the audience.
Oh man.
that are rhymes. And yeah, I don't know why this film has never been talked about more, and I always felt like, am I missing something? So I'm glad you guys enjoyed this film as well, because I've watched this film many times and I'm like, how do people not? Because of the people you have in here, this story, the way it's written. I mean, this is such a fun movie.
It really is. And I'm surprised to hear you say it was only 40% of critics like it, because I'm like, that's kind of wow. I mean, maybe the rumor is that this movie exists because Sinatra was pissed he didn't get Sky Masterson in the Guys and Dolls movie, and then it went to Brando.
Oh, really?
Supposedly. So I don't know. Maybe some critics are like, oh, fuck Sinatra and his vanity project. Maybe that was
it. It's a hell of a vanity project. I want to go and read some of those negative reviews just to see where people's heads are at, because I think this is the kind of movie that after it was done, and even points while I was watching it, I didn't think I want to tell people about this to watch it. I felt I want to watch this with people. I want to be the person to sit down and say, you're not going to believe this. Yeah, it's 64. Yeah, it's the Rat Pack, but just trust me. I want to see this on a big screen. I mean, it's 60 years old this year. You'd think like the Music Box or someplace would have picked it up, or Warner Brothers. Hey, WB, where's the anniversary 4K of this? Maybe it'll come out at the end of the year. I don't know. It's got the Christmas ending, so who knows? Maybe we'll get a holiday surprise.
It's got a Christmas ending, and it's got Bing's son is in this. Philip Crosby. He plays one of Robbo's guys. Because he's the one that when Adele first shows up, he brings the chair out and go, hey, take a seat, Pops. And you can see Big give him a slight look.
Wow.
But yeah, that was his son.
His son was in it. This was the last theatrical released musical for Bing as well. He only did a few films after this, not many, including I think Stagecoach he did also with this as well. Pulling up other little tidbits. Gene Kelly was hired as a producer but left 3 weeks before filming because, go figure, he had disagreements with Frank Sinatra.
Speaking of Bing's career after this, there's a horror movie, made for TV horror movie where he plays a doctor who's killing all these people in a small town. And if you ever wanted to think like who's the last person, it's called Dr. Cook's Garden. If you ever wanted to think like who's the last person in the world who you think would be like the small town doctor who's like offing everybody, it's Bing Crosby. But sure enough, it's like, I think it came out in the early 70s. It's probably on YouTube somewhere because a lot of these TV movies end up on YouTube.
But let me ask you, is this like a Mrs. Voorhees situation where at the end you're like, oh my God, it was him all along, or is it very clear from the beginning that he's the one killing these people? It's
been like 20 years since I've seen it. I think it is clear from the beginning he's the one doing it.
That makes it even more fun. I gotta check that
out. It's called Dr. Cook's Garden. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube. It's got to be somewhere.
There's a fun little tidbit here with the shooting, which why this film may move as quick as it does. The average shot length, 13 seconds. Median shot length was 12.3 seconds. For 1964?
Yeah, that's fast for 1964.
That is pretty damn fast for 64, shooting on film. So that could be also why it helps move this film quite a bit, I have fun with this movie. I am glad I was able to work it some way into our month, because this is one I haven't watched for a while, but just watching it again, I'm like, I love this movie. I do.
I lit up last month when you were going through the titles. I love all 4 movies that you're covering this month. And I lit up when you said Robin and the Seven Hoods. I was like, I love that movie. And like Ian said, this is a movie that I'm like, why is this movie not spoken about? Why does nobody remember this movie?
It's creative, it's well written, it's sharply directed, it's fun. And you said, Ian, as well, it ties up tidy at the end. You get all your threads tied up. It pretty much.
And
it's
tucked away to
also
Cornerstone.
Yeah.
But it's also the rare kind. We talked about this a bit, but it's the rare movie where at the end you leave like really kind of happy. Like I saw a great fun movie, but even though all the characters are like criminals, you're like, well,
Literally everybody except for Bing Crosby.
Yeah.
Well, but he ends up
He's
with
shady.
Yeah, in the end, he
with,
ends up with
with Marion. So who knows? But he could just be he could be her arm candy. Who knows?
Which again is a great moment there, because they see Adele with Marion and they're all in their beards. So I think Adele knows who they are. I don't think Marion might recognize them, but he at least, I think, recognizes them. And he puts money in their bell, and then they sit there and they knock on the cornerstone for the building to say, "Oh, the deputy sheriff, he must be part of this."
If she's with him, then he must be in here.
I know we're wrapping up, but I just want to talk about one of the great character introductions of all time is Little John with Dean Martin, the pool sharking. That whole scene where he's just goes in and he's like measuring the shots, and I mean, it's all fake, right? Because you can see just people like rolling the balls in from off camera to get into the pockets, but it's just so cool and funny. He just takes the guy for like what, $32,000, I think.
$32,000. That's what I loved too, is that the exaggeration of the money that these guys just happen to have on them.
32. Oh yeah, count out 50 grand for the for the guy that's gonna fix the place.
Yeah, when they've got the architect and they're trying to count out 50 grand, and Dean's counting the money, and then Marion shows up, he's like, just hands to the guy, here, count out 50.
Count the
50. But yeah, when they do the pool sharking, I love that intro. Dean gets his musical number where he's singing while he's playing pool, and he just runs the table on Robbo, and that's how he joins the gang. It was a great parallel to your Robin Hood story of them fighting with their $1.25 staff.
Yeah.
In the real film, they're just sparring, and John shows he's better.
Right. And at the end of that, I mean, Robbo is like, well, cool. I guess I got
he's impressed.
This guy's all right. Yeah.
He's impressed, and he's like, hey, you want to join up?
Yeah.
I love the line of dialogue, because Robbo goes, "Oh, what do you say, 100 a ball? I don't carry hundreds. I might get picked up for vagrancy."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
great
line. So they both whip out their rolls of $1,000, which you notice how the money too is larger than normal money in this film.
Oh yeah, they're like legal pads.
It's like this big. It's like they're at least 8 inches. Like it's like insane.
I'm surprised they don't have just like giant dollar signs on the face of each one.
Could have just pulled out a bag with a dollar sign on it.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, folks, Robin and the Seven Hoods, please, if you enjoy any of these actors or just looking for a fun movie, this is it. This is a blast. It holds up very well. And yeah, I couldn't recommend it more. We'll go around for your final thought. Ian, what's your final thought with this?
My final thought is, if you are a fan of physical media, I would definitely rent this movie and then wait to see if there's a nice Blu-ray or 4K. I know it's on DVD and stuff, and I think there is a Blu-ray. I know there's a Japanese one somehow.
Yeah.
But if you're strictly streaming and digital only, I would say skip the rental and just buy it for $10 off Amazon.
Yeah.
So I guarantee what's going to happen is you spend $4 or whatever to rent it, and then you'll be like, well, shit, now I got to pay $10 to own it, because you're gonna want to have this in your library somehow.
Well said. Joe, your final thought with this?
And again, I was worried coming into this that it might be one of those things where it's like I'm just nostalgic for it because I caught it on AMC or TCM at some point and then just kept watching it every time it was on. And I'm glad to see you guys agreed with me on this and no, this is actually a really fun movie.
Yeah.
I know almost all the lyrics to all the songs at this point, having seen it so many times. But like you, Mark, I haven't seen it in a long time before today. So it's the fact that immediately when the song started, I knew all the lyrics. I was like, oh my God, it all just comes flooding back to me. And man, it is still a good time. I must have seen this movie 20 times and it's still fun even now.
It is. And I'm the same way. Watching it again, it had been a while, and watching it, I fell in love with it all over again. And I know that's cliche, but it's true. It's such an endearing, just fun movie. And, you get to those favorite scenes that are coming and you can't wait to get there. Like for me, the revival scene for me is like my favorite scene, how they transform everything. And then they do the revival and who's singing about not drinking, and the rhymes, the lyrics that they do for that as well, like Sammy Davis's part in that song where he talks about how he was a pickpocket, and then Adele reminds him, oh, and gin, and he's like, oh yeah, and the gin, and then he's like now I'm so addicted to this stuff, my hands shake, I can't work. And I just like, so many wonderful dialogue moments in this.
And he kind of shoos him off after he says it.
Yeah, and then he shoos him
off. Get out of here. What are you doing?
So, yeah, folks, please check this out. If you have checked it out, please leave your comments. As always, welcome here on the Spoiler Room if you watch these later on and not the live show. And, now this is where I give my wonderful crew their license to shill. So, Joe, shill away. You talked about a little bit of something coming.
Well, that's still a long ways out because they just wrapped on Thursday.
Yeah.
I did work on the Joe Bob Briggs AMC Fear Fest special Friday the 13th, 1 and 2, which I think airs October 6th. Though those movies aren't a secret, they already announced them. On a literary license, we each picked a filmmaker or actor, and we're going to be covering a good amount of their films. For Keith, he chose Paul Verhoeven, so we're going to start going through the Paul Verhoeven's movies. Sean chose David Lynch, so we're going to start with Eraserhead this month. For me, I decided that I wanted to do the Rise and Fall of Bela Lugosi, so we're going to be starting this month. Since these are short, they're like 70 minutes each, we could do two of them instead of doing one. I'm going to start with 1920's Daughter of the Night and 1929's The 13th Chair. We're just going to kind of, slide in and out, discussing what was going on in Lugosi's life at that time, or I might be pairing movies because they're similar and there's a topic that I want to talk to. But right now, first one we're going to do pre-Dracula, and Lugosi was one of those guys that his glory days came very early in his career. So we got to do pre-Dracula. We got to get 2 movies in and then get to Dracula for next month, which happens to fall on Halloween.
Nice.
Totally. Not
coincidence.
It just happened because Keith always starts the seasons in September. So
very cool. And Ian, please shill away, sir. Floor is yours.
Well, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and also right here on YouTube, doing roundtable reviews and interviews and all that kind of fun stuff. And I'm also here on Monday nights and sometimes on Tuesdays, talking movies with Mark and Joe. It's a lot of fun. And again, Mark, thank you, because if it weren't for your catalog of obscure and older films that I had not seen, most of the times not heard of, I'd be totally lost, because there's nothing in the modern movie landscape that has me jazzed, except for oddly Twisters. That's the big movie for me this summer.
Which is odd. Which that's if I had my choice of films this year, that would have had that you would have put I would not have thought Twisters. So I'm impressed.
I know. Weird.
That's so weird. And yeah, folks, specialartproductions.com for all your Movie Man needs, plus archives of the Spoiler Room, where you can also catch us on Spotify and all your various podcast channels. Check out The Final Cut. I've got some reviews dropping. I've got some spicy films I'm reviewing, including Babezilla versus the Cyber Skanks, The Rise of Mecha Babezilla. I'm reviewing Psycho Sex Dolls and a couple others. Plus, I've got a written review up now of a new film from Mitzi Perrone. She did Braid a number of years ago. It was a wonderful film. And she's got a new one, St. Clair, with Bella Thorne. And I look for the interview with her to drop next week, because I get to talk to her next week about the movie. So I'm excited about that. So we got a lot of stuff. We got a lot of stuff coming. Right now, there's a Deadpool Wolverine It's Vinally Mine episode live. I'd only do a little bit of work. So I don't do a lot of content. So, but thank you all for your support. We are that close to 3,000 subscribers. Literally 3 subscribers is all we need for it, folks. So if you haven't yet, please hit the bells and whistles, because we got a lot of great content going in the last end of the year. And one more thing, on our YouTube channel, you can find a trailer tomorrow for the Sawdust City Fright Fest. That is coming up in 1 month. And in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, at the historic Time Community Theater, where once again, they were foolish enough to let me on stage and MC it. We've got 19 shorts and 3 feature films. A lot of Wisconsin. I think like 85% of it is from Wisconsin and Midwest. So including one of the features we opened with Friday Night, which is A Time to Die by Robert Love. So we got a lot of great stuff. It's a fun weekend in October, second weekend of October, the 11th and 12th. Come to the Oshkosh. And you get maybe meet even a couple of familiar faces here from the podcast. So Sawdust City Fright Fest, you can go to sawdustcityfrightfest.com as well for more information and the program of what we'll be showing. So thank you so much. I'll stop rambling and we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.